talking in your sleep. It's a bad trick.
Yes, call the police.
That you saw her in a dream, yeah, good luck there.
Apparitions, Thursday at 9 on BBC One. And if you missed the last episode, it's available now on BBC iPlayer.
The BBC News now on BBC One with Emily Maitlis.
A new top rate of income tax to hit Britain's highest earners. The news comes as the government prepares to announce a package of tax cuts.
The stimulus we give, and that's real help for business and family, it's got to be temporary, it's got to be timely, and it's got to be targeted.
4 police officers are killed in a car crash in Northern Ireland. And why Michael Jackson won't now be coming to London. Hello, good evening. The BBC understands the Chancellor's planning to raise income tax for the highest earners to help pay for a package of measures to be announced tomorrow. The new top rate, possibly 45%, would apply to people earning more than £150,000 a year, but would be delayed until after the next election. The news comes as Alistair Darling prepares to reveal tax cuts to kickstart the economy, including bringing down VAT to 15%. In a moment, we'll hear from our political editor, Nick Robinson. But first, Ben Wright has this report.
This afternoon, the Treasury team met to give a glimpse of their report. Many of the details are still secret, but tonight, news of a seismic policy shift.
Labour is finally going to break the promise that it made never to increase the top rate of income tax.
Earlier, at number 10, the Prime Minister explained why he believed a so-called fiscal stimulus plan was needed now. A huge package of tax cuts is on the cards as ministers try and pump money quickly into the economy.
My argument is, and every other country now accepts this, every continent is taking the same thing, is you've got to give real help to businesses and families now. Not to give real help now would cause more damage later. But the stimulus we give, and that's real help for business and family, has got to be temporary, it's got to be timely, and it's got to be targeted. And that's what it will be.
So what's likely to be in tomorrow's pre-budget report? There will be a 2.5% cut in VAT. That's a fast way of encouraging people to spend. There could be money to help low-income earners, more help for people who lost out from the scrapped 10p tax rate perhaps. The Chancellor may also be tempted to postpone the rise in vehicle excise duty for another year. But what goes out must come back. There will need to be higher taxes later on, including a new top rate of tax for high earners to come in after the next election. Immediate tax cuts have been criticised by the Conservatives.
My worry is that if you have temporary tax cuts followed by large permanent tax increases, that actually says to people, this is not a stimulus, this is actually a warning about a big tax bombshell.
The Liberal Democrats want tax cuts, but say they should be permanent.
We prefer a different approach, which is more targeted on people who really need it, and we believe that people on low incomes, low wages should get an income tax cut, lifting thresholds or reducing the rate, and that's a much better way of concentrating resources where it needs it.
Will the government's plan work? It will be some time before we can tell whose reasoning was right. Tomorrow will be a day of drama here at Westminster. The government will spell out its plans for reviving a sick economy and explain how money given out in tax cuts can be paid back. The Conservatives say it's the wrong medicine. For political reputations and the economy, there's much at stake. Ben Wright, BBC News, Westminster.
Our political editor, Nick Robinson, broke the news of that possible tax rise and joins me now. Nick, what further details do you have? Can you confirm?
Well, we simply know this, that there will be a new top rate of tax, that it won't apply straight away, indeed it won't apply until after the next election, 2010 or 2011, that it will be at 45 pence in the pound, and the exact threshold for it we don't know. Over 150,000, it could be higher still. What we really know is that this is politically hugely significant, economically much less so. That would raise maybe £2.5–3 billion at the moment. for a government that needs to raise billion after billion, because the complex story of tomorrow is a short-term tax cut and then huge tax rises for years to come to pay not just for that, but for a budget deficit that is now vast because of the recession.
And coming at this time that will take a lot of people by surprise, is this a major political shift then?
It's a huge break from the past. Remember that this was the symbolically significant move after the creation of New Labour. Tony Blair thought it so significant that when there was an election poster in 1997 pledging not to increase income tax, either the basic or the top rate, he signed it in his own hand. When Gordon Brown became leader, he repeated that pledge. Now they will insist tomorrow they're not breaking any pledge because those pledges just stood between elections, and therefore they will give the people a chance to have their say at a general election, whether that's the best way to raise tax in a way that will no doubt be presented as fair and just at a time that everybody is having to take some pain, or whether the Tory way is a better way, which Labour will imply spending cuts and tax breaks for people who are richer. But symbolically, this was all about saying to people, if you aspire to earn more, if you want to be rich, don't worry, we're not going to come after you as a Labour government. Now Labour's enemies will say those days are over and that Gordon Brown has been exposed for what he really believes in.
Nick Robinson, thanks. Well, one of the things this could help to pay for is a cut in the rate of VAT. That will go down from 17.5% to 15%. Will it be enough to ease consumers' pain and regenerate the economy, as the government hopes? Here's our economics editor, Hugh Pym.
It'll be a big change for shops and shoppers. A reduction in value-added tax on goods and services from 17.5% to 15%, except on items like food, where there's no VAT payable. The government's aim is to tempt people to spend in a bid to boost the economy.
It's a relatively attractive tax to cut if you're trying to stimulate the economy in the short term. If you were to, for example, cut income tax instead, one of the concerns would be that people will go out and save the proceeds.
Retailers say the tax cut will be passed on to customers, though changing price tags in shops won't be easy to do in a hurry.
I have no doubt that retailers will take that opportunity to pass on cost reductions as fast as they're able, although there are of course some practical difficulties of making sure that those prices are changed in this busy run-up to Christmas.
So how might the VAT cut feed through to store prices? Well, you'd pay £5 less on a 22-inch flat-screen TV, you'd save £13 a year on an annual mobile phone bill of £600, and a typical Ford Mondeo may soon be nearly £400 cheaper. But will that be enough to get shoppers spending more before Christmas? Some are sceptical.
It won't make a massive difference at all. No, I mean it's nice to be doing it, but no, it won't make a massive difference. I don't think 2.5% is going to make much difference, to be honest. I think there are other things they could do. So I don't think it'll make a difference to us anything a bit.
It's only a small percentage, but at the end of the day, how bad everything is, a couple percent is better than nothing.
It means there'll be more money to be spent. I hope you'll get the economy moving again so that we can all enjoy some better news in the year.
But this will only be a temporary reduction on the high streets. VAT is set to go back up again sometime in the future. It'll be a key theme of the Chancellor's statement. Tax cuts now, with a lot more government borrowing, and tax rises, with a clampdown on spending, to come later. Hugh Pym, BBC News.
Tributes are tonight being paid to 4 police officers who died in a road accident in Northern Ireland. The officers' 4x4 vehicle hit a wall and burst into flames on a stretch of Coast Road in County Down as they responded to a call for help early this morning. The men have yet to be named. John Thorne reports from Belfast.
The police vehicle left the road at a small humpback bridge. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, dark, wet and windy, and the 4x4 careered through a ditch and burst into flames. The officers were driving along this lochside road, responding to an urgent call for assistance from a police colleague.
This was a tragic event. It was officers, community officers, response officers, going to help a colleague who was in need of assistance, and sadly, it just shows how risky policing can be.
All 4 officers in the car lived within the rural community they policed. And through the day, scores of tributes and messages of condolence began to flow in.
The 4 constables represented the entire Mourne community. There won't be a single family in Mourne who won't have known someone who's been killed in this awful accident. And I know that prayers have been said in churches and chapels throughout the constituency for the families of bereaved.
In fact, this weekend across Northern Ireland, a total of 7 people have died in 4 separate road accidents. And the police crash represents the largest single loss of life among the ranks of the PSNI since the IRA and Loyalist paramilitary ceasefires over a decade ago. Now, investigators will examine a black box-type device fitted to the crashed police vehicle, which should help them decide exactly how the accident happened. John Thorne, BBC News, Belfast.
One of the biggest high street banks, Royal Bank of Scotland, is freezing overdraft rates for its small business customers. The bank, which also owns NatWest, is the first to promise not to withdraw its lending facilities to try to help customers survive the economic crisis. British Transport Police have launched an investigation after a woman and her 7-year-old grandson were killed by a train on a level crossing. The accident happened yesterday evening on the line between Worksop and Nottingham. The gates to the crossing were operating at the time of the accident. Now, in the last half an hour, the BBC has learned that Michael Jackson will not be attending a hearing at the High Court in London due to take place tomorrow. A settlement in principle has been reached with an Arab sheikh who claimed he breached a music contract. Our entertainment correspondent, Lisa Zimba, is here. Lisa, what have we heard?
Well, we've heard that there have been discussions over the weekend between the two camps and that within the last hour or so a settlement agreement has been reached in principle. We don't have any financial details, but what it does mean is that Michael Jackson now won't be coming to the High Court to give evidence tomorrow. Let me give you a bit of the background to this case. Michael Jackson met the sheikh just after his child abuse trial in 2005. They formed a friendship, and the sheikh says he paid for the legal costs of the trial, as well as supporting Michael Jackson's lavish lifestyle. Now, the sheikh says the deal that Michael Jackson was going to repay him from money from business ventures that the two were going to undertake together, like a new album and an autobiography. Now, Michael Jackson says that that's not true. They were intended just as gifts to him. Now, I can tell you, I'm sure it will be a relief to someone like Michael Jackson, who does guard his privacy extremely jealously, that he now won't have to give evidence in person at the High Court tomorrow.
Lisa, thanks. It sparked outrage amongst Christians at the time that more than 40 years after John Lennon famously said the Beatles were more popular than Jesus, the Vatican's official newspaper seems to have forgiven the remark, saying it was simply the boast of a young man grappling with fame. John Brain has the story.
London in the 1960s and Beatlemania at its height. Perhaps hardly surprising that this sort of adulation could go to a young man's head. John Lennon dropped his bombshell in an interview with the London Evening Standard. "We're more popular than Jesus now," he said. "I don't know which will go first, rock and roll or Christianity." Cue a furious reaction. In the southern United States, thousands gathered to protest and burn Beatles records. John Lennon had some explaining to do.
I'm not saying that we're better or greater or comparing us with Jesus Christ as a person or God as a thing or whatever it is. You know, I've just said what I said and it was wrong.
4 decades on, the tourists are still flocking to Abbey Road where the albums were recorded. The fans never minded the Jesus comparison, but many others did.
It says everything about the Beatles' influence, that they were able to turn a humble pedestrian crossing into an iconic image. But it's exactly because they were so influential that many Christians were upset by John Lennon's comments.
Now, the Vatican's newspaper has decided it's time to turn the other cheek. In an article praising the Beatles' music, it excuses Lennon's boast. The remark sounds only like a quip by a young working-class Englishman faced with unexpected success.
These remarks, which he himself said, he messed up, he didn't mean to come out as he did. But to be outraged about that, when he said so many good things about his...
It's taken 42 years, but the Beatles and the Vatican seem reconciled at last. John Brain, BBC News.
Now for today's sport, here's Lynn Hinchcliffe.
Hi, Lee, thank you. Hello, good evening. It's now 4 defeats out of 4 for England's cricketers, who've been beaten once again by India in the one-day international series. In a match shortened by rain, Kevin Pietersen's side fell 20 runs short of the target set by India. With 3 matches left to play in the series, all England can hope for is to avoid a whitewash. Andy Swiss reports.
From the very first ball, this was a very familiar story.
And Sehwag is away.
India's batters have battered England all series, and not even 2 rain delays could dampen their enthusiasm. Virender Sehwag with a blistering 69 before his teammates joined him in the fun. Captain MS Dhoni whacked his first ball into the stands, and when Yusuf Pathan repeated the trick, England's last hopes also seemed to be hit for 6. They needed 198 at a mere 9 runs and over, but to their credit, they gave it a decent shot, thanks to Owe Shah's excellent 72 and to Andrew Flintoff, who made a typically hefty impact, not least on the stadium roof.
It's hit the top of the stand. That is a huge hit.
But when he eventually went for 41, England's hopes went with him, and India duly wrapped up both the match and the series. The even worse news for England is there are still 3 games to go. Andy Swiss, BBC News.
There are 2 Barclays Premier League matches to tell you about today. Harry Redknapp continues to turn around Tottenham's fortunes. His team beat Blackburn Rovers 1-0 at White Hart Lane. Roman Pavlyuchenko scored early on, and then Rovers had to play the second half with 10 men after Martin Olsen was sent off. Spurs move out of the bottom 3 after this victory. West Ham have put a halt to their terrible run. They were 1-0 winners away at Sunderland. Valon Brahmi scored his first goal for the Hammers and have handed manager Gianfranco Zola his first league victory in 8 attempts. Ricky Hatton insists he only wants big fights now after he beat Paulie Malignaggi in Las Vegas last night. Hatton retained his IBO light welterweight title when Malignaggi's trainer stopped the fight in the 11th round. Hatton says he's now back to his best. He can look forward to another big payday next summer. Matt Goodrick reports.
You have to hand it to Ricky Hatton, he's got a sense of humour. The man once dubbed Ricky Fatton had the last laugh at critics of his lifestyle. They enjoyed it ringside, but 11 months ago in Las Vegas the joke was on him when he lost to Floyd Mayweather. Returning to the scene of that fight was a brave move. Hatton had a point to prove against Paulie Malignaggi, and how. The hitman's now trained by the father of his only conqueror, Mayweather Sr., and his presence has had the desired effect. It was just a shame there were only 9,000 fans to witness this return to form. Those who were at the MGM Grand saw Hatton deliver a continuous flurry of blows. By round 11, Malignaggi, or more to the point his corner, decided he'd had enough. The New Yorker wasn't happy. As comebacks go, this was pretty much perfect. He's had his setbacks over the last 12 months, but Hatton's back on track. Matt Goodrick, BBC News.
And that's all the sport, Emily. Selina, thanks very much. You can see more on all of today's stories on the BBC News channel, including the government's plans to bring in a new top rate of income tax. From all of us here, good night.
What's this? Where's the football? It hasn't recorded. I can't watch this old rubbish.
If you're buying new TV recording equipment, make sure it has the digital tick. If it doesn't, it may not work properly after the digital switchover.
I knew that was going to happen.
Hello again. Last night it was snow, tonight it'll be rain, and tomorrow, well, it'll be sunshine eventually, albeit accompanied by a pretty chilly wind blowing into the north. So not done with the cold snap just yet. But as I said, it'll be rain rather than snow tonight. But some very strong winds as well, particularly across Northern Ireland, and running down through towards Devon and Cornwall later in the night, accompanied by some of the heaviest of the rain. Elsewhere, the rain fairly patchy. Fairly chilly though across Scotland, many northern and eastern parts of England, and close to freezing. So there could be the odd icy patch around
first thing tomorrow morning. A rather cloudy start for most of us, still some bits and pieces of rain around, but notice the way skies gradually brighten from the north as we go through the day, so most places I think ending up with some good sunny spells by the afternoon. One exception to the northeast of England, perhaps into Lincolnshire as well, a fair number of showers blowing in on those raw winds off the North Sea, getting as far as the Pennines, but head across Scotland, a lovely afternoon, bright blue skies through the central lowlands for example, and across Northern Ireland too, barely a cloud in the sky. Come the second half of the day, but it will feel chilly, highs of just 6 or 7 degrees, similar temperatures down across Wales, where it will also be a rather breezy afternoon. But after the morning, particularly strong winds, just easing down a touch, I think, across the southwest through the afternoon, and the south coast of England, sheltered from that northerly, not feeling too bad, but the odd shower pecking in across East Anglia and into Kent as well. We'll keep the odd shower going in those easternmost parts of England into Tuesday. Most of us, though, dry, some sunshine again, still on the chilly side, but it looks milder by the middle of the week. Bye-bye.
Undercover to stop the country going bankrupt. Next on BBC One, The Spooks.
Have you any idea who might have done this?
Where do I find it in that? Where were you asking?
Come on, dig it! Why is this a secret?
The hardest questions a detective asks are the ones he asks himself. Kenneth Branagh is Wonder, the first of 3 feature-length investigations next Sunday at 9 on BBC One.
I was 5 and he was 6. We rode on horses made of sticks. He wore black and I wore white. He would always win the fight. Bang, bang. He shot me down. Bang, bang. I hit the ground. Bang, bang. That awful sound. Bang, bang. My baby shot me down, 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 down. I shot you down, bang, bang. You hit the ground, bang, bang. That awful sound, bang, bang. I used to shoot you down.
Doing their bit to prevent financial meltdown now on BBC One, and it's a bit more dangerous than an interest rate cut. Another chance to see this week's Spooks.